What's gone wrong for Sunderland?
Who cares about us?
Gab, the sacking of Tony Mowbray at West Brom.
I think our back Leeds to win the league.
You could end up on 49 points and still finish bottom.
Who are we putting in 5th and 6th, Gab?
I think...
Hello guys, welcome back to the Sportsman Untitled. A really exciting episode coming up for you today after an enthralling Easter weekend across the Championship. I'm joined by Gab Sutton as always and Johnny from Roker Report, the Sunderland fan. We'll get to Sunderland later on. But Gab, we have to start. 2 teams up to the Premier League, Leeds United and Burnley. Fully deserved, right?
Absolutely. Many congratulations to Leeds United and Burnley. I think the experience of their respective managers has shown this season. That's 3 promotions apiece now for Daniel Farke at Leeds and Scott Parker at Burnley. Very well done to both of them.
And for you, Johnny, you kind of watched them from a little bit of a distance, but the 2 best teams in the league have gone up, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, look, we were in and around that race the early part of the season, but you can't compete with teams that are that good. I think, Burnley's defensive record's been done to death almost, but there's a reason for it because it's absolutely remarkable. The standard of defensive play they've shown this season. And Leeds as well, I mean, really well balanced side, some great players in there, some great individuals. And also, a slightly under the radar defensive record themselves. I mean, as long as they don't kind of mess it up between now and the end of the season, them and Burnley, they'll be going up with the best and second best defensive records ever seen in the Championship, since the rebrand. So I think that tells the whole story for me. Those teams are fully deserving of going up, and look, fair play to them, well done to the managers. I
think if you throw in the goalkeeping errors we've seen from Leeds this season as well, if you take them out of account, Gab, they could have gone up with a defensive record maybe even closer to Burnley's than what we saw.
Yeah, and I think that's where, for me, I would say Leeds, it's about quality over quantity going into throwing it forward a bit for the Premier League, because I think in much of their squad is actually really strong and capable of competing in the Premier League. For me, it's about getting those key areas right, and I think they are probably the goalkeeper, I would say. And for me, I think there's different opinions on Joel Perreault. Obviously, he scored 4 yesterday and he's had a great season. I still think they maybe need a bit more athleticism up top for the Premier League. I think Leeds have got to focus on quality rather than quantity for the summer. Defensively, they've been fantastic.
There's only one thing left to play for now with the top 2. It's the title. They're both level on points, Johnny. Leeds have Bristol City at home and Plymouth away, whereas Burnley have QPR away and Millwall at home. It's going to be interesting to see how these 2 teams kind of deal with the fact they're now promoted, and obviously they've had a bit of a party this weekend. So how do they kind of approach these games, and who are you backing for the title?
I think you've got to look at it as a free hit. If you're in that dressing room or within that bubble of Leeds or Burnley, you've played under the pressure all season of chasing that promotion, trying to make sure that you secure your place in the top 2 and get this gap with everybody else going into the final games of the season. So enjoy it, take the shackles off a bit and just play with a bit of freedom, because I think it'll suit Leeds more than Burnley in that sense as well, because I think Leeds are more of a freer flowing team anyway. Burnley's obviously extremely well organised and well drilled, but I think Leeds have got a little bit more about them in both directions. They're a bit more of a well balanced side. So I'd be thinking, a Leeds team with nothing weighing them down in the last couple of games could be, quite a scary prospect for the rest of the league. So I feel sorry for Bristol City and Plymouth if that is what happens, because I think our back Leeds to win the league.
You with that, Gab?
Yes, I think so. I think they win their last 2 games, and it doesn't matter what Burnley do if that's the case, because based on the plus 14 goal difference advantage that Leeds have over Burnley.
And we've talked about Daniel Farke in the Premier League before. Obviously, he's struggled a bit at Norwich, Gab, getting relegated a couple of times and then losing his job as well. Do you think he's going to have more of a chance this time around with Leeds?
I like to think that his experiences with Norwich City, a lot of it was dictated by investment. Norwich didn't have an awful lot of that going into the Premier League, certainly not the first time around. I think that's going to give him some experience and understanding of what's required to translate a really strong template that Leeds have demonstrated in the Championship and applying it to the Premier League. And I think with the right amount of investment, which I would expect is going to be forthcoming for Leeds, I think he is going to get it right, because you look at his Championship record, he's had 5 seasons at that level, 4 90-plus points tallies, 3 promotions, 2 titles and counting. yeah, he's done a fantastic job for Leeds United, and I think he might get it right in the Premier League.
Love to see that. I think he deserves another shot. Johnny, is it better to go up kind of with a solid defence as we've seen with Burnley, or with a bit more of a flamboyant attack? We've seen many teams go up and fail recently. What do you reckon is the better strategy here?
I think, look, you need a balance. You always need a balance between attack and defence. But if you had to pick one of the extremes, I think going into the Premier League, you'd rather have the defence. You know, maybe Burnley and Leeds aren't the best comparison this season, because I do think Leeds are fairly balanced. So I think they'll have half a chance of staying up, which is all you can ask really going into sort of the modern Premier League. But if you look at Burnley the last time they went up, you know, I'd rather be Burnley this season than Vincent Kompany's Burnley going into the Premier League. I would rather be a Scott Parker side than a Russell Martin side, I think. And I know they're an easy target based on how this season's gone, Russell Martin, Southampton. But yeah, for me, I think that defence has to be the priority, because just the nature of the game, you know, you go in the Premier League, you are going to be defending more than you're attacking. You're going to be without the ball more than you're with the ball. And you can have a philosophy and you can have a way of playing, and that's great. But that league will humble you very, very quickly if you go up and you're not prepared. So yeah, for me, I'd rather be Burnley if I had to pick attack or defence. But yeah, I think out of the specifically the two this season, I do actually think Leeds are, you know, reasonably well balanced. So I wouldn't mind being either of them. I'd take being either of them over Sunderland today.
Hopefully they can give the Championship a good credit for itself after what we've seen in recent years. Obviously, Leicester, Southampton going down, and Ipswich looking likely as well this season. Hopefully that changes next season. But we should talk about the relegation battle in the Championship after an absolutely bonkers Easter Monday, right? The bottom six all avoided defeat. 4 of the bottom 5 won. Plymouth beat Cov. Luton beat Bristol City, who are both fighting for the playoffs, Gab. Where do you stand on it now? I mean, what can we say with 2 games to go?
Oh my goodness. I mean, you could end up on 49 points and still finish bottom. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. Because this is the thing, like, Plymouth Argyle are only bottom of the league, and they're only 3 points off safety. So that's how mad it is going into the last 2 games. I do think that, though, that you look at the form of the teams towards the bottom, especially Luton and Derby, that is what makes me worried for Cardiff City and Plymouth Argyle, because I think at least one of Derby and Luton are going to stay up, and so that makes it a lot harder for them. And I think there's probably a world where both Derby and Luton stay up, in which case the pressure really is on Hull, Oxford and Preston.
Absolutely, Johnny. How do you see it right now? I
agree with Gab that I worry a lot for Cardiff. I think especially after the way that Omar Riza has behaved and then left his job recently, I think, you know, that's a cloud that you don't want in a relegation battle, which is negative enough as it is. I look at Preston as the sort of dark horses in the negative sense of they could really end up getting sucked in, because they are on such a poor run, and I think you can sleepwalk your way into relegation from this division. From the other teams, I agree again with Gab. I think Derby and Luton, to me, look like the 2 candidates who can make a bit of a late charge and save themselves. Oxford, though, it might be because Oxford still have us to play, and I have that natural negativity about Sunderland and think they'll end up beating us. But from what I've seen of Oxford, after the first part of the season, I actually think they've improved a fair bit, because early on I thought they were hopeless. But I think Oxford might have just enough about them to kind of scrape up by the skin of the teeth. So I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit and say one of Derby and Luton stay up and one of them go down. But I don't know which is which. And I think Cardiff and Plymouth are probably gone.
It's all to play for. It's so exciting right now. Let's talk about Cardiff. Aaron Ramsey comes in. Why? And what can he do? Is it just to lift morale, try and get something? Do you think it's the right decision?
Yeah, I think it's somebody who's a bit of an icon of the city of Cardiff. Can he sort of galvanise people? Because you look at Omar Riza's interview after the 2-0 loss at Sheffield United on Good Friday, and he did look beaten. And I'm not going to blame him personally, because I think that it can sort of wear you down a little bit, management, especially when things are going against you. And it's very easy for managers to speak in a certain way after a heavy defeat, and you can feel a bit lost sometimes. And so I do think that bringing in Aaron Ramsey, just a new voice, a bit of fresh energy around the club, gives Cardiff possibly a better chance, but I still look at it, and it's the points gap, because if we think one of Derby or Luton's going to stay up, then Cardiff have got to make up pretty much just 6 points on Hull in the last 2 games, or on possibly on Oxford with a goal difference swing, and that's the thing. I don't see how it's going to happen. So Cardiff City have got to win both games, but they're also relying on other results going in their favour, and I just don't see it.
The goal difference is a good point, actually, and that's where Plymouth, despite winning 3 of their last 5 and despite doing well at home, I think that's 3 home wins in a row.
Yeah.
Their final game is against Leeds at home, and we've talked about Leeds potentially going for the title. That could be incredible, top versus bottom, if they get out of that. But they're on a minus 37 goal difference, which means they probably need to win their last 2 games. And again, we're looking at 49 points as kind of the minimum to try and stay up, Johnny.
Yeah, and it just shows you as well how competitive the whole division's been this season. I mean, look, Burnley and Leeds have now sealed it at the top, so fair play to them. But everybody else, I mean, we've seen results all season long that show that anybody can beat anybody. You know, form comes and goes. The fact that Plymouth took 4 points off Sunderland this season, despite the fact that they're rock bottom and Sunderland are 4th, I mean, that paints a picture all on its own. But I think, you know, the goal difference, like you say, that's where you start to hurt for your early season and your mid-season. You know, it's all well and good trying to galvanise at the end and get yourself out of it, but if you've let it get to that stage in the first half of the season, then, you know, it's a massive uphill battle.
Just another point I'd like to make. The gap between 2nd and 5th in the Championship is 27 points, and the gap between 5th and bottom in the Championship is, let me just make sure I've got my maths right, what's that?
24.
24, thank you. So that just shows you there's a bigger gap between 2nd and 5th than there is between 5th and bottom of the league. So that shows you how tight it is 5th and down.
Yeah, it's concertinaed all together, hasn't it, in terms of the quality of each of those teams, which makes it an enthralling league to watch, you've got to say.
I think we'll come on to this again in a bit and I'll do our predictions, but the points tally at the top is high and the points tally at the bottom is high, which means the quality or the points total in the top playoff chasing has been almost, the points have been sucked out of that and given to the top and bottom of the table, which just makes it so difficult to predict for all of us at this moment in time. We'll finish this kind of relegation chat by talking a little bit about Preston, because you touched on them then, Johnny. Gab, I'll come to you first. 3 defeats in a row now. It does feel like the other teams, we mentioned the bottom 6 all picking up points this weekend. It feels like they're getting sucked into it. They're on 49 points as we speak. Might just be enough, might not.
I don't think 49 points is enough. I think Preston North End have got to go and get a few more points on the board just to make sure. I mean, it might be that they need to get to 52 points. I mean, maybe Portsmouth are just about safe on 52. But one thing that I'm slightly apprehensive about with North End is I think Paul Heckingbottom had kind of let loose on the squad a little bit after one of the, I think it was the Good Friday game and the 2-1 defeat to QPR. And I sort of think, oh, Paul, keep your powder dry a little bit, because you've still got to make sure that you manage your players to get the points you need just to get over the line. Because the way that it's looking, you know, if Derby, Luton, Hull, they all won. And so that gap is tightening. I mean, it's only 3 points at the moment. Preston have got the goal difference advantage, which makes it a bit more like 4, but they can actually get sucked in. So they need to make sure that they tick off another couple of points.
Bristol City away as well, next up for Preston. Bristol City are on a winning run, as we've spoken about as well, in the playoffs. Are you looking over your shoulder if you're a Preston fan right now?
I think you are massively. I think what's going to save them in the end, assuming that they don't go down, is going to be basically the same thing that happened to Sunderland last season, where if you extended the season an extra 5 games, we'd have probably gone down because we couldn't buy a point. And I think Preston as well, they're just going to run out of games to drop into it, if that makes sense. You know, I think if you go on this kind of run over an extra 3 games, even extra 2 or 3 games, with the way the teams below them are playing, I think they really are worrying. But I think just because there are only 2 games left and they probably need a point, maybe 2, I think that'll just save them. But they'll certainly not be feeling confident and they'll certainly be stressed out.
But how mad is this though, by the way, guys? Preston North End have only lost 15 games all season, and we're still, with 2 games to play, we're talking about them as potential plummeter when they've only lost a third of their games.
It's the same number of games as Millwall have lost, and Coventry have lost more games than Preston this season.
That's incredible.
I give up with this league.
Yeah, this division it needs to be studied for science. Like, what is?
You don't make sense.
No. You see the table on paper in black and white, and you just kind of go, nah, that cannot be right.
Middlesbrough have lost
It's like
17.
a crazy stairs, isn't it? It's like, what?
Yeah.
Blackburn have lost 18, Middlesbrough have lost 17, Cov have lost 16. They're all in playoff contention, and Preston have lost 15 and could be going down. Amazing league. Right, the last thing we're going to round off with this weekend, Gab, the sacking of Tony Mowbray at West Brom. It's gone dreadfully, hasn't it, really, in the last few weeks especially, which is really disappointing to see given the excitement that was around his kind of return.
Yeah, there was a lot of excitement around his return, and even some of the performances early on in his reign. They thumped Portsmouth 5-1. They had a couple of performances, even the one at Elland Road, where they created a lot of chances and one of the best displays that anyone's managed to produce there this season. And yet, just recently, it's felt like, I think since Tony Mowbray took charge, I think initially their ceiling has actually been slightly higher than it was under Carlos Corberán in terms of when they're at their best. However, their floor is way lower than it was under Corberán. So if they're, based on the points return required to get into the playoffs, if they'd just been able to tick off points and, a few 0-0 draws and, just tick off, I think they would have got in comfortably. And certainly if Corberán had stayed. But I think that it's because Mowbray maybe tried to go so attacking, and in some games that paid off, but in other games it's left them open defensively, and also there's been possibly a neglect of set-piece defending like against Derby on Easter Monday. They've been, at times they've been a little bit more exciting going forward, but a lot of the time they've been much weaker defensively, and that's why they're missing out on the top six.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's been, when you lose both games over Easter weekend, it's always kind of difficult. I'm not sure they registered a shot on target against Coventry on Friday. Obviously lost at home to Derby as well. It's a difficult position for West Brom to be in, because people were thinking they were going to finish fifth for a lot of the season, especially if Corberán had stayed. Now they're down in 10th, and you kind of have to look forward to next season and if they can get it right, Johnny.
Yeah, and I think that's why Tony Mowbray's gone in the end, isn't it? It's looking forward to next season, because I don't think, obviously he's failed to get them in the playoffs, but I don't think you could say he's done a horrendous job in the games that he's been in charge, Mowbray, this season. But it's just one of those, isn't it? He was basically brought in as a short term, can you fire us up those extra couple of places? It's not worked out, and then, like you say, Simon and I on next season, and you're thinking, look, I love Tony Mowbray to bits. I feel like most fans in most clubs he's been at love him as a person, but looking at him as a manager, is he what West Brom need to kick on next season? I think the answer's probably not, and so that's why he's gone. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they go in West Brom next season, actually, because it feels like Corberán and Mowbray, admittedly looking for that bounce, was quite a bit of a whiplash in terms of style, both of the football and of the person, the personality. So it could be a really interesting summer for West Brom in terms of recruitment, both in the dugout and on the pitch.
Absolutely right. It's time to talk about Sunderland, and as per, I think, what might be the title of this video, Johnny, I'm obliged to ask you, what's gone wrong for Sunderland?
Lazily, I'll say injuries first, because we have lost some key players for quite a substantial amount of the season. I mean, Romain Mundle now, I think, must have missed around 20 league matches, if not just over that. Enzo Lefebvre picked up a hamstring injury not long after coming in. Tommy Watson was missing for a while. We might touch on him again later. Dennis Serkin. I mean, I can rattle off names, but we have, we've been without some key players for some important games, so that plays a part. But I also think back to, in fact, it might have been when I was on last, was when we played Leeds. And there was that short period where we played Burnley and we missed those 2 penalties and we ended up dropping points in that game.
Yeah, I felt for Isidore that night.
Yeah, he looked absolutely devastated. And then hot on the heels, we then have the Leeds game. You concede the Leeds winner in the 91st minute or whatever it was. And I just think, I think internally the club would have looked at that and gone, if we take 6 points out of those games, we're right in this race. If we take anything less, we're probably not. And so I think from that point, the focus has probably internally shifted a bit from, we need to go hell for leather to get as many points as possible to get in that top 2. I think it's shifted a bit to, okay, let's try and be a little bit smart about this. Let's manage the situation, Because if you think back to 2 seasons ago when we went into the playoffs last time, we scraped in, we were... it was madcap stuff. I mean, that final day where we won away at Preston and Blackburn, that was a Blackburn Millwall, I think.
Or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
Just crazy stuff. So you scraped in by the skin of your teeth, but then, we lined up, I think, away at Luton in the second leg of the semi-final without a single centre-half. I think we had one fit full-back who was playing out of position. It was... You don't help yourself. So I think this season they've kind of looked to go in a little bit more measured and a bit more calculated and thought, right, we can get minutes into legs, we can rotate, we can not risk players when they don't need to be risked. And there's advantages and disadvantages to that. And, the Sunderland fan base has been particularly divided on that over recent weeks, because it doesn't lead to the most exciting games necessarily in this kind of interim limbo period. But yeah, I think for me, where it went wrong, if that's what you want to call it, would be the Burnley and Leeds games. I think that's where it really started to sink in that I think we're out of this automatic promotion race now.
We will be doing a live playoff show before the playoffs when we know exactly the 4 teams that are in it. We've known that Sunderland are going to be in it for a very long time. We've known they're going to finish 4th for a very long time. So, my question to you is, does form matter heading into the playoffs? It's kind of a 50-50, 2 sides of a coin. They're getting to rest players they need to, but they've known they're going to be in the playoffs for ages.
I would lean on the side that resting players is probably a wise thing at this stage. I think that you want to manage your squad shrewdly and maybe not burn players out unnecessarily. At the same time, there is part of me thinking that in terms of momentum, you want to be able to have that sense of having got into the playoffs and fighting for something, and then it kind of carries you through into the playoffs. So I think there are pluses and minuses. So I'm really curious. But what I'd probably say is for the last 2 games, I would like to see Sunderland get closer again to their best 11, just to re-establish. It's like before England play in the major tournaments, they have the warm up friendlies. It's that kind of thing. I would think.
But just what I would say on that is, I think you look at the Good Friday game where we played Bristol City. We actually did name sort of near enough as strong an 11 as we could have named that day, bearing in mind who's injured. And I thought the way that we set up in that game, the first 5 minutes or so, we looked a lot closer to our early season team than we did to the team of the last couple of months. We were pressing much higher, we were much more intense, because that was something that was a feature of us early in the season, was really coming out of the blocks quickly and getting at people. We've lost that a little recently. That seemed to be back, but then 6 minutes in or whatever, the referee whips his red card out. He couldn't have waited to get it out his pocket any quicker, by the way. It was a terrible decision. But then, you're down to 10 men for 85 minutes, and any tactical game plan that you wanted to try and implement, it goes out the window at that point. So I would just say that I do think that is the intention, what you said. I think you're totally right. You want to show that what you're capable of, and you want to get back to that form before the end of the season. But I do think we tried. We were just, hampered in the end by a little bit of questionable officiating, as well as, just also coming up against a decent enough side on the day in Bristol City.
So let me ask you then, Johnny, what do you think Sunderland's best 11 going to be as we enter the playoffs in a couple of weeks?
So again, injuries dependent, but I think it's pretty uncontroversial that Patterson, Trey Hume, Chris Mepham, O'Nien, Dennis Serkin, if he's fit at left back, that's the back 5. Yeah. I think they've started probably the most games together as well. The midfield 3, you can quibble a little bit because you've got 4 names, but I think most fans would say Dan Neil, Joe Bellingham, Enzo Lefebvre.
Rig can be a game changer off the bench as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he's not a bad option to have, is he? To come off the bench, even if he doesn't start. And then your front 3, left wing will be Romain Mundle, right wing will be Paddy Roberts, and then through the middle, you can take your pick almost between Wilson Isidore and Eliza Mayenda.
Is there a feeling that Roberts has maybe gone off the boil a little bit in the last second half of the season and maybe suffered from not having that competition?
Well, he definitely started the season much better than he maintained. His early season form, the first 5 games or so, I thought he was excellent. He struggled a bit as well, I think, because he's a player who thrives on having people very, very close around him. Whereas, so when we had Amad Diallo, who was getting in those pockets with him and linking up, looks fantastic. But I think especially because Wilson Isidore has been the main striker for most of the season, he really thrives off space and behind, stretching the defence, making the pitch feel as big as possible. Whereas Roberts wants everything in here. And so I think there's a little bit of, not that they're on different wavelengths, but just different styles.
Also, Humes want to underlap rather than overlap. So
exactly.
If Roberts is going to cut inside, ideally you need a fullback that's going to fly forward on the overlap, whereas Hume isn't necessarily that guy.
Yeah, so I think, look, there's been a lot of spirited debate about Patrick Roberts amongst the Sunderland fans this season.
That's a great way of phrasing it.
It's as polite as I can. But I think you can't doubt his quality. His ability on the ball is there for everybody to see. The issue with him generally comes in trying to convert that from aesthetics into numbers, into kind of raw output. But I think, he started the season really well, struggled to maintain it a bit, but he's one of those where I think in something like the playoffs where, if you get to Wembley, you just need one performance. He's got it in the locker. So I think, he has struggled, but it's in there.
Talking of the playoffs, who do you fancy in them? I know there was a bit of talk after that Bristol City game. I can't remember which one of your players was like, well, we'll see what we can do with 11 men against them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Fancy Bristol City?
I tell you what, this will sound cocky, but I would take them out of anyone, hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, no hesitation. Only because I thought, even with 10 men, they struggled to break us down. Yes, we relied on a bit of a wonder goal from my end to go 1-up, but they relied on a wonder goal to make it 1-1. And then I just didn't see enough from them to convince me that they're good enough to beat us over two legs. Yeah. Now, clip that up and it'll come back and bite us when they do. But I'd take Bristol City. Who I do not want, Simon, is your lot. I would not like to see Coventry against Sunderland, either in the semis or at Wembley, because whatever black magic voodoo curse you guys have got over us, we cannot beat you. So if you could just do us a favour, either go out or we go out so we don't have to play, yeah? I don't want to see it.
We've got to get in the top six first. It's not a guarantee right now.
It's an odd rivalry you two have, isn't it? It's back to the Jimmy... It's not a geographical one. It's based on the Jimmy Hill days, isn't it?
It's a good job my dad's not in here, because if you mention Jimmy Hill in front of him, we'd be recording for the next 90 minutes.
Yeah, we'll just delay the kickoff for the second leg at the same night and see how that goes down. I would fancy playing Sunderland, but maybe this is a debate to have on the playoff show before I get too carried away with us finishing in the top six. What's Le Bris got right and wrong this season, quickly?
What he's got right is most definitely the style of defending in terms of the shape and also the way that we press. Sunderland fans want to see a team who wants to win the ball back, and there's been differences in, okay, where's the trigger point for the press? How high up the pitch do you want to be when you start pressing? But the way that we are quite intense in getting at people and trying to win the ball, that gets Sunderland fans on side really quickly. So I think it was a smart move by him to set us up that way. Gets a lot of buy-in early on. And obviously getting the results helps. What he's got wrong, I think, at times, I think he was nowhere near quick enough to rotate, both in terms of team selection and substitutions earlier in the season. And I think we've seen the results of that at times, both in certain injuries we've picked up and in certain lacklustre performances. I don't think we've necessarily been as fresh and as ready as we could be. But I think by and large, he hasn't made too many kind of glaring mistakes. You don't look at any individual games the way we've set up. He doesn't tend to come out with any curveballs massively, which is a good thing because you know what you're going to get, but also it means that you don't have that ability to shock people like some teams do. But yeah, I think the style of play and the organisation has been fantastic. So that's the main thing I want to credit him with, because even at our best under Tony Mowbray, we were very eclectic and very, it was all off the cuff. Whereas I think under Le Bris, we always look like we know what we're doing.
Do you have a feeling, though, Johnny, that you'd like to see him be a bit more proactive or front-footed in terms of in-game management in the playoffs?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Like I say, both in terms of rotation of legs, but also a lot of the substitutions he would make would always be just like for like, which, look, I understand it. Like, it makes sense. If you think, well, my plan is working how I want it to, so I'm going to maintain that, then fine. But I think there are games where we've maybe needed a goal, or we've just needed an injection of something different, whether that's, fresher legs, a bit of pace, or whatever it might be. I do think he's been too reticent to try things like that. And I think it's something that in the playoffs in particular is important, because momentum is going to be huge. Over a two-legged tie, the way that it ebbs and flows, you don't want to get too swept up in it, I think. Yeah. And particularly with such an emotional fan base as Sunderland tend to be, for better and for worse, I think it's really, really important for us to be able to try and manage those games and control what goes on and kind of the intensity and stuff. So, yeah, I would definitely highlight that as an area of improvement. But having said that, I do think he's shown signs of improvement over the past few months, probably with the playoffs in mind. He started to rotate the team and, be a bit more proactive with substitutions. But yeah, that's definitely been an area of concern.
Right, we're going to finish the show, Gab and Johnny, by talking about some games this weekend, some very important ones. But let's start with Preston versus Plymouth. We've talked about both teams already. Preston on the slide, Plymouth giving themselves a shot in the arm. Gab, how's this one going to go?
Oh, I'm going to go with 2-2.
2-2. That's probably not enough for Plymouth, is it?
No, I don't think so.
Johnny?
I'm going to go 2-1 Plymouth. I've got a horrible feeling for Preston. I think they're going to slide.
Their away form's been pretty bad, Plymouth, but I think they can get something too. I'm going to go for a 2-1 as well, I think. Yes. Come on, Plymouth. Come on, Plymouth. Next up, and this one is massive, Hull in 20th, 2 points clear of the relegation zone, 2 points clear of Derby County, who they host at the MKM Stadium. Gab, this is a massive game, isn't it?
1-0 to Derby, I think. That's my prediction. Yeah, I think Derby, they've been so massively improved under John Eustace. They showed their set-piece expertise away at West Brom last time out. And I think they're going to get the win that nudges them a step closer to safety.
So Derby have Hull away, Johnny, and then on the final day, they face Stoke at home.
I mean, they are the absolute epicentre of this relegation battle, aren't they? It's going to be fantastic viewing. I fancy them to nick 3 points against Hull as well. I agree with you. And I think Derby do look like a tough, well-coached outfit under Eustace in that very short space of time. And then that final day against Stoke. I'd love to see a Derby big win against Stoke, just to drag them in as well and really put the cat amongst the pigeons. I could see it happening as well. I can see Derby staying up, so I'm going to say 2 wins.
You can really enjoy the final day. You can just put Soccer Saturday on. You don't even have to watch Sunderland if you don't want to.
Just going to be sat back enjoying it. Who cares about us?
I know, finished in 4th. Right, last game we're going to look at is Luton versus Coventry. Gab, a repeat of the 2023 playoff final. Now both teams in very different circumstances indeed. Coventry have really struggled on the road lately. 1 point in their last 4 away games. Got beaten by Plymouth. How does this one end?
I think maybe Coventry get into the top 6. That's what I think.
But what about Luton versus Coventry?
What about Luton versus Coventry?
I love your optimism, but I want to know the score prediction.
Score prediction. I think, I think Luton might beat Coventry because I think going to Kenilworth Road at the moment is absolute nightmare because Luton are just so strong at home.
Bloomfield's done a good job lately, hasn't he? I think it's 5 wins out of the last 10 games. Johnny, are they going to win this one?
I actually think Coventry are going to win. I think the motivation of wanting points to cement yourselves in the top 6. I know it's a horrible place to go, but I just think Coventry have got just a bit too much about them. And I said I think one of Derby or Luton would stay up, so I can see Derby with their fixtures getting the points and Luton just running out of steam.
One thing I would say about Luton is I think they've tweaked the dynamics of their attack, that where they've got energy around Carlton Morris, they've got Milanic Ali, who played in a more attacking role, they've got Tello Asgard, and I think whereas previously they'd looked a bit sort of static with Morris and Adebayo, 2 sort of cumbersome strikers, now it's Morris and runners around him, and I think that's made their attack a lot more three-dimensional.
I think Luton beat Coventry. I'm so unconfident after what I saw against Plymouth. I think we've got real issues playing away from home. I think we try and do the same thing.
I think you'll beat Middlesbrough on the final day.
I think that's what it'll come down to. That'll be the big showdown that everyone will have to watch on the final day. But I think Luton probably a good pick to beat Coventry this weekend. Right. Let's do our relegation updated predictions. Gab, I think we did this a few weeks ago. We have to pick the 3 teams to go down. Johnny, I'm going to let you start because you're the guest. You can say anything you want.
I think to go down, it's going to be Plymouth, it's going to be Cardiff, and it's going to be Preston. There you go. Clip it up. Preston are going down.
You've been saying you're worried about Luton this whole time.
Yeah, well, I can say anything I want. Like you say, I'm the guest. So,
Gab, where are we landing?
I'm going to go with Plymouth Argyle, Cardiff and Hull.
Interesting. I'm going to say Plymouth are valiantly going to fight but go down due to their goal difference. Cardiff, probably too much work to do. I'm going to go Preston as well.
Yes! strength in numbers, Simon.
I've worried about Preston all season, and I think I don't like their form. I don't like the way they're going, and I think they could just slide and find themselves in the bottom 3. We should also do our top 6 predictions. We don't need to talk about Sheffield United or Sunderland, who out of Bristol City, Coventry and Middlesbrough and Millwall, and maybe even Blackburn we can throw into the mix as well. Now they're still mathematically in the mix. Who are we putting in 5th and 6th, Gab?
I think Coventry will beat Middlesbrough, and therefore I think they'll finish in the top 6. And I think Bristol City might beat Preston North End on the final day, and therefore they'll join them.
Agree with that, Johnny?
Yeah, I think we're staying as we are there. I think that that top 6 is going to remain exactly in that order between now and the end of the season. So I'm thinking Coventry in 6th, so we can avoid you in the semis and then pray that Sheffield United do a job.
See you at Wembley. Right, Gab, time for your championship treble quickly, please.
Yes, I think Derby are going to win at Hull to leapfrog their hosts. I think Middlesbrough are going to beat Norwich to set things up nicely for that final day trip to Coventry. And I think Portsmouth are going to cement survival with victory at mid-table Sheffield Wednesday.
Looks really good. That'll be priced up on Betfred to back. I mean, we can't really predict the championship, but that feels sensible looking forward to it. And Gab, have you got a quick corner of concern for us this week?
Yeah, I think Cardiff City, I think they've brought in Aaron Ramsey, hoping that he can provide a bit of belief and positivity, but he's still on the books as a player, so I'm not sure how much coaching experience he's got. But more importantly, I think even if Cardiff do win their remaining 2 games, I don't think it's going to be enough because of the points bar that's going to be required.
League One next season, potentially, for the Welsh club. Johnny, thank you very much for joining. I hope to speak to you in a few weeks for the playoff preview we're going to do. Gab, thank you as always. Make sure you like and subscribe. Get in your comments down below. Who do you think is going to go down from the championship this season? Because it is wide open. Like and subscribe as always, and we'll see you next week.